was one of the first people to buy weed legally.
The Honey Pot shop didn't open until today, but the lineup started yesterday and they're still going strong. The doors have opened on a new era in Ontario. Ontario is the last province in Canada to allow cannabis to be sold in stores, and today's rollout didn't go exactly as planned. Only a handful of the proposed stores are open. Nick Bovair joins us now live from one of them, the Honey Pot on Queen West. Nick, looks like business has been steady there all day.
Yeah, that's right, Dwight. I think that might actually be a bit of an understatement. You can see the line behind me here. It is snaking out of the store, around the block. It's been like this all day. People are waiting about 30 minutes to about 40 minutes to get in the store right now. And that might at least be in part because this, for now, the Honey Pot Cannabis Company is the only game in town. It's the only one out of
For the diehards in line, the wait still beats the black market or online shopping.
It's easier for people to go out and buy stuff from the store rather than waiting a week and a half.
The accessibility is a big thing. I know a lot of people in Ontario have been waiting for a long time to be able to kind of grab it legally.
The Honey Pot was one of just 9 stores in Ontario that opened its doors today. There were supposed to be 25, but most of the businesses that won the retail lottery didn't get their licenses in time.
Some didn't fill their paperwork out, some's taking a little longer, but I think over the next couple of weeks we'll get it done.
Brampton's Ganjika House is the GTA's other pot shop for now.
And I think we made something here that we can all be proud of, each and every one of us.
The store opened with a more modest lineup this morning. Customers said the wait and somewhat higher prices were worth it.
For me, it's reassuring to know what's in the product, right? So I'm happy about that.
But the product might not last very long. The Ontario government is capping orders to retail stores because of what it calls a national cannabis shortage. The federal government doesn't see it that way. Its latest stats say Canada's growers have almost 19 times more cannabis than they actually sell. Business owners are still waiting for the smoke to clear.
At this time, I'm not overly concerned because the supply seems to be there. So I think we're okay for now. What happens in the next couple of weeks will really determine if supplies are concerned based on the demand.
Across the country, about 80% of recreational pot is still purchased illegally. It's also about 50% cheaper on the black market, according to Stats Canada. Industry experts say retail stores will eventually attract some of those customers.
I think people are going to like this experience. They're going to learn a lot if they have questions. And I also think there's an undefined number of people that will only buy it in a retail cannabis shop that you walk into, ask questions, and buy.
So Dwight, a little bit of a rocky start here despite the enthusiasm of some of the people you see leaving the store. And there are going to be some more big moments here on the horizon for this industry. We still don't know exactly how many stores the province of Ontario is going to allow to operate. We don't know when the federal government is going to allow all these new products like edibles, cannabis drinks, vape pens, things like that to go on the market. So a lot of question marks still to come in this industry. And today, April 1st, one of them answered in terms of the first new stores, but many more to come. Dwight.
Thanks, Nick. So shops are open, customers are buying, retailers raking it in, but what about the producers? What new products are coming to our pot shops? I talk with the Chief Commercial Officer of Aurora Cannabis a little later in the show.
Canada is really seen as that hotbed of innovation right now, and really where the large cannabis companies that are driving innovation are rooted. And it's a great opportunity for us to show the world what's actually capable with this particular product.
A new government report says Canada's climate is, on average, warming up at twice the rate of the rest of the world. It comes on the same day the federal carbon tax takes effect in 4 provinces. The report prepared by federal scientists says the annual average temperature over land has increased by 1.7 degrees Celsius since 1948. In the north, the increase is even higher at 2.3 degrees. That compared to the average global temperature, that's up by less than 1 degree. Now, the report shows increase in precipitation and flooding in many parts of the country, but also says there's higher risk of heat waves, drought, and wildfires. The document says that while warming has been the result of both human activity and natural variations in the climate, the human factor is dominant, especially the emission of greenhouse gases. Ottawa says tackling climate change is the reason for its carbon tax, and today that tax became a reality for drivers here in Ontario. boosting the price of gas by 5 cents a litre. As our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crowley explains, that's come under fire from the Premier.
$124.9.
At the pumps today, gas prices hit the highest they've been this year, and these drivers are placing the blame on Ottawa.
Carbon tax, right?
Carbon tax, federal government.
I heard because of the taxes.
At a Ford dealership, Premier Doug Ford hammers away at that carbon tax.
We know for a fact when you go to the gas pumps right today, you're paying 5 cents a litre more.
The average price of a litre of gas dropped 30 cents from October to February, then it rose more than 20 cents in the 6 weeks that followed. And that increase before today was all about market forces, not the carbon tax.
You know, gas prices go up and down, they fluctuate. If we don't actually address climate change, it's going to have a serious impact on the people who come, our children, our children's children, and our children's children.
The Prime Minister tells us that the carbon tax will be good for us. But then I sit back and say, really? Why should anybody believe what he says anymore?
Even though the carbon tax only begins today, you're getting a rebate of it on your 2018 income tax return, worth more than $300 for a family of 4.
We're putting a price on pollution, but when people file their taxes, they'll get the climate action incentive rebate, which is more than most folks will pay.
Yet a recent poll suggests only 40% of Ontarians are aware of the income tax rebate, and some of those pumping gas today aren't convinced.
I don't think so it's going to still help out to anyone.
Well, yeah, if they give us $2,000 back, maybe it might help.
The Ford government stoked anger about the carbon tax online all weekend.
Friends, today is the last day to fill up your gas tank before the federal carbon tax hits your family budget like a ton of bricks.
Dozens of Ford's MPPs tweeted out a similar anti-carbon tax message on Sunday, with photos of themselves pumping gas.
It was completely ridiculous and reckless for them to put our children's future at risk by saying we should be increasing pollution rather than decreasing pollution.
Mike Crowley, CBC News, Toronto.
Advocates and city councillors are expressing concern over overdose prevention site cuts by the province. On Friday, the Ontario government announced that under its overdose prevention strategy, only 6 sites in Toronto are approved for funding. One of the 3 that has not yet been approved, near Ryerson University, is run by Toronto Public Health.
These are life-saving, evidence-informed services. We've heard from Street Health that they've reversed 30 overdoses. We've reversed 750, and I think if you ask any one of the service providers, not just here in the city of Toronto, but throughout the province, and I would dare say throughout the country, we are all saving lives. So when the services are taken away, I expect you will see deaths.
The Villa says the Toronto Public Health site is the busiest site in the province, with more than 40,000 visits since 2017. Premier Doug Ford responded to the backlash today when a reporter asked him if the province really wanted to help addicts. Wouldn't the government be funding more sites, not less? Here's how he responded.
We're going to help them any way we can, but there's really no reason to have 4 sites within a kilometre of one neighbourhood. And maybe when I go for a walk, maybe you can join me and talk to the people in the neighbourhood. You know, just it's all right for people to say, yes, help them, help them, help them. And with all due respect, Colin, if I put one beside your house, you'd be going ballistic. You would. But I want to try to help these people. You know, it's okay. Yeah, help them, but not in my backyard. That's the reality of things.
In the first 6 months of 2018, more than 600 Ontarians died from opioid overdoses, up 80 from the same time period in the previous year.
Stranded in Toronto. I'm Greg Ross. Tonight I speak with 6 people from Alberta who have been stuck in Toronto for 3 days after Air Canada grounded its fleet of Boeing 737 MAX 8 planes. We'll have their story coming up.
Folks, I checked with Colette. That blast of winter that we had on the weekend was an April Fool's joke. Colette, I think you said it's over now and we're looking forward from here.
Yes, I hope so. I don't know. I don't know that it was a joke, but I always kind of say and remind folks that it takes till about mid-April before the roller coaster sort of ends. So I thought we'd take a look at what April's typically like and look at some of the averages. In terms of the daytime high, so this is average, the high across the month. So it's going going to be less or lower at the beginning of the month than at the end, but it's 12.2 is what it averages out to. Daytime low, 1.9. Rainfall, just over 60 millimeters. And no joke, there's still snow possible even into April. 4.5 centimeters on average we see. So to answer Dwight's question, I'm not sure that we're necessarily completely done with this, but we're sure getting close. Today, 2 degrees right now. The current temperature 3, though, in Markham. That breeze coming in from the southwest, and it does still give us a wind chill. So it looked like a beautiful day, and then you kind of got out there and you realize, ooh, it's a little bit cool. It feels like -3 right now, -5 in St. Catharines with the winds a little bit stronger. Seeing clouds on the increase tonight. A system is going to be bringing some snowfall to the north of us. How it's going to impact us, I'll get into a little later in the show. But overnight tonight, -1 for your low. And tomorrow, with gusty southerly winds, it's going to help the temperature, Dwight, go up to a high of 8 degrees.
We like that. Thank you, Colette. We'll check in with you later.
Sounds good.
Police have now identified one of the 4 suspects in relation to the kidnapping of a Markham man. 22-year-old Wanjen Liu was tased and taken from his home over a week ago and was found safe 3 days later. Kelda Ewan joins us now from York Regional Police Headquarters up in Aurora. So, Kelda, what do we know about this suspect?
Well, an arrest warrant has been issued for 37-year-old Abdullahi Adan of Toronto. York Regional Police released 2 photos of the suspect just a couple of hours ago. Now, Adan is wanted on some very serious charges, including kidnapping, forcible confinement, assault with a weapon, and assault. Now, he is considered armed and dangerous, so police are warning the public to do not approach him if you do see him. As for the other 3 suspects, police say they still need the public's help. Investigators are still hoping someone will be able to identify 2 of the 3 men from surveillance photos that they released last week.
Our investigators have gone through these images, speaking with numerous people who've called in with tips and information, and that's really why we have this warrant now being issued for Mr. Adan.
Back on Saturday, March 23rd, 22-year-old Wanjen Liu was kidnapped in the underground parking lot of his condo building on Highway 7 at Birchmount in Markham. Liu was found 3 days later in the town of Gravenhurst. That's about 180 kilometers north of Toronto. A resident saw him outside his home and immediately called police. Now, when police arrived, they found Liu was healthy but suffering from minor injuries.
Motive is part of this ongoing investigation, and we're just not sure why this had taken place at this point in time. Obviously, our investigators have spoken with Mr. Liu, and I'm sure he's provided them with some great evidence, but we don't know the motive. Our focus right now is finding these suspects.
As for Mr. Liu himself, police are saying very little, except that they do believe that he did not know the suspects and he had no connections to Gravenhurst. They say they don't want to provide any more information because they are concerned for Mr. Liu's safety and his security, given that 4 suspects are still on the loose. And police are appealing to these 4 suspects to seek legal counsel and to turn themselves in. I'll send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you, Kelda.
I certainly think Jody Wilson-Raybould should be gone.
It is totally inappropriate to record without notifying the other person.
Record a conversation and not let the other person. That tells us a lot about the character of the person.
So, does it make you...
Liberal MPs take on fellow caucus member Jody Wilson-Raybould for secretly recording her conversation with the clerk of the Privy Council. The question is, just how long will Wilson-Raybould be in caucus? We'll bring you the latest from Ottawa next.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
British lawmakers voted again today on a way forward for Brexit, but they rejected all options on the table, leaving the UK in a continuing state of limbo over the divorce deal with the EU.
The ayes were 191, the noes were 292. So the noes have it.
MPs were choosing between four alternative plans after rejecting Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit deal last week for the third time. One route they were considering was the possibility of a second referendum. Ministers are now said to be on resignation watch in case the Prime Minister decides to step down. The proceedings took a cheeky turn when a group of activists stripped down in the public gallery. They say they were trying to draw MPs' attention to climate change. Police made about a dozen arrests. Britain is due to leave the European Union on April 12th. MPs returned to Parliament Hill today after a one-week break and went right back into the debate over SNC Lav land. The Conservatives are now delaying proceedings in the House, saying they want to end what they're calling a cover-up, and Liberal MPs are facing questions about what's next for Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott, who resigned from Cabinet over how the matter has been handled by her government. Joining us from Ottawa is senior parliamentary reporter Julie Van Dusen. So, Julie, what have you been hearing from Liberal MPs?
Well, Dwight, it seems that Jody Wilson-Raybould has worn out her welcome in Liberal caucus. That seems very apparent. And that tape that was released on Friday, the tape of her conversation, 17 minutes, with the former clerk of the Privy Council, Michael Wernick, whereby she taped him and didn't tell him, that has stunned many Liberal MPs. Many of them are saying that they would have a problem sitting beside her, near her, in the same room as her in Liberal caucus, where it's supposed to be safe, you're supposed to air views. They wonder if she would be taping them and possibly releasing conversations or taking notes. It's broken trust. So on her way into the House of Commons today, Wilson-Raybould was asked about damage she may be doing to the party and so on. And she said, "Why should I resign? I'm only trying to do the best job I can." But it may be out of her hands. She may be booted out of caucus on Wednesday, and possibly Jane Philpott. It may actually happen before, because Liberals are certainly getting fed up, and that tape was a catalyst. Take a listen.
Personally, I think for a lawyer to tape her, record a conversation and not let the other person, that tells us a lot about the character of the person.
I think that members of Parliament, whether they're in the Cabinet or not, need to have integrity, and to do that was very disturbing.
The tide seems to be changing, Julie, on that front. So what's ahead on this?
Well, who knows in this story, but we do know for sure that Gerald Butts, the former principal secretary to the Prime Minister, has sent some material over to the Justice Committee. It's being translated. We assume he's trying to refute Jody Wilson-Raybould and her last dispatch to the Justice Committee. We will be hearing more about that once it's translated. In the House of Commons, the Conservatives are launching a protest until they say they want Canadians to hear the whole story. So Pierre Poilievre has launched a monologue. Take a listen to him.
I have the ability to speak an unlimited period of time, and I will be using that ability to demand that the government end the cover-up.
So tomorrow morning, Dwight, the Conservatives on the Justice Committee are going to propose a list of witnesses they say that Canadians should hear from. The Liberals have the majority. I assume they will vote that down. We can't assume anything, though, in this ongoing saga.
Senior reporter Julie Van Dusen in our Parliamentary Bureau in Ottawa. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
A group of volunteers from Edmonton has been stuck in Toronto the last few days. They were on their way home from Ethiopia when they missed their connection in Toronto. Greg Ross tells us why they haven't been able to get on a flight since.
Usually, April 1st, we don't wear sandals in Toronto.
Yeah, this is not an April Fool's joke.
Unfortunately, those are the only shoes Nathan Freed has right now.
Here we are stuck in Toronto, and they ship all of our clothes, all of our checked luggage to Edmonton without us.
Freed is a reverend at the First Baptist Church in Peace River, Alberta. On March 23rd, he took a group from the church on a one-week trip to Ethiopia to do some volunteer work.
We have a connection with a really poor school in a really poor neighborhood, and we wanted to teach English. They asked us to come and do that.
They arrived there just days after an Ethiopian airline Boeing 737 MAX 8 plane crashed, killing 157 people on board.
The school that we were teaching in was actually only about 15-20 minutes away from the crash site.
Little did they know that crash would eventually have an impact on their travel plans. They were scheduled to fly back this past Friday, but their flight was delayed 3 hours, causing them to miss a connection here in Toronto. Air Canada put them on standby and loaded their luggage onto another plane.
The plane was too full, so they said,
Yeah.
go see customer service, and then they told us we had to wait till Tuesday to get on another plane.
That was Saturday morning. The reason for the long delay? Air Canada is dealing with a massive backlog after grounding its fleet of 24 Boeing 737 MAX 8 planes. Not a single one of you guys are wearing a jacket.
We had T-shirts.
While Air Canada is footing the bill for their hotel and food, they had to pay out of pocket for clothes to get through this 4-day layover. Just one of the many inconveniences.
We are missing a lot of school. We're grade 12 students. It's hard to miss 2 days of school.
But they say they are making the best of it, shopping and taking in some of the sights.
We went to the CN Tower today, and now we're going to a Blue Jays game, so we're trying to make the most out of it.
Nobody from this group has ever been to Toronto. They only wish the trip could have been under better circumstances. They fly to Edmonton tomorrow morning and then have a 5-hour drive back to Peace River. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Hopefully they'll come back and visit under better circumstances. A day after the Canadian Women's Hockey League announced it would be shutting down, the general manager of one of its teams, the Calgary Inferno, says it doesn't mean they're finished.
Just as any other time we've been faced with adversity, we are going to go back to the drawing board, and we'll try to come out of this situation stronger than we came into it.
The Inferno won the league championship just over a week ago. The league has said its business model is financially unsustainable and will shut down May 1st. There is another women's pro league in North America, the NWHL, which currently operates only in the U.S. It had been in talks with the Canadian League about a possible merger. Plenty of changes took effect in Ontario today, and it's not just pot shops. What's new, what's out, and what's different? Coming up after the break. A federal tax on fuels that emit greenhouse gases went into effect today in Ontario and 3 other provinces after they refused to bring in carbon taxes of their own. It will increase the price of gasoline by about 4.5 cents per litre. And according to a recent Canada-wide survey, the perception of the carbon tax impact on people's lives appears to be divided mostly along partisan lines. Evan Dyer explains.
Now, the fact that this is a different sort of patchwork arrangement around the country is probably contributing to the fact that there's a huge amount of public misunderstanding and misinformation about how the carbon tax will work, and that has been detected by pollsters. Abacus Data, a polling firm here in Ottawa, did a survey of Canadians both in provinces that have their own plan and provinces that are being subject to the federal plan, and found that about 80% of people say that the carbon tax is having a major impact on their bottom line, or at least some impact on their bottom line. And of course, if you live in a province like Ontario, that is absolutely not the case, because it only took effect today. That survey was carried out entirely before the carbon tax actually came into effect. Also, we see a large partisan split in the polling. So while there's no regional differences really in perceptions about the carbon tax, including, for example, no real difference between areas where there will be a federal carbon tax and where there won't be a federal carbon tax, there is a large difference in the views of Conservative supporters compared to supporters of other parties.
What is a driver is your partisan perspective. Conservative Party supporters much more likely to say that they feel that the carbon tax has had a big impact on their cost of living. Liberals, New Democrats, less so. And I think that points to the impact that leadership has, rhetoric on this topic, that Conservatives already are anticipating their cost of living to go up, and already believe it has, even though, for example, Conservatives living in Ontario, that tax hasn't taken effect yet.
And that same poll by Abacus picked up one worrying sign for the Liberal government. The Liberal government, of course, has been emphasizing that while Canadians in those 4 provinces will pay more for gas and heating oil and other products of that kind, they'll get more money back in most cases in tax rebates. But the question is, will they notice those tax rebates? Abacus data found that among those Canadians who'd already filed their taxes, a large number didn't notice the rebate line and weren't aware that they were getting back on average of about $300. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Ottawa.
The carbon tax is not the only change we are seeing tonight. Changes to Ontario's autism program are now in place, and some people are losing their provincial drug coverage. Lisa Shing has the details for us.
On April 1st, 2019, the Ontario Drug Benefit Program will no longer provide prescription drug coverage to children and youth 24 years and under who have private drug coverage.
A letter Lindsay Parks got from the province. Her 2-year-old son, Malcolm, has leukemia. He's been in remission for half a year. A treatment regimen that continues for another 3 years keeps it at bay.
So there's a chemo component, but also a medicine component to his treatment.
He has a specific mutation in his leukemia cells, and he takes a daily oral chemo, and that targets the specific mutation in his leukemia.
Now, that drug will not be covered by OHIP because Parks has a private plan, though her insurance company will not pay for it.
Missing is there's a little bit of a gap where if something for kids with high medical needs, something isn't covered.
That's just one of the changes taking effect today. The new autism program kicks in. The province is giving direct funding for a wider variety of treatments. It's also consulting on how to best help children on the severe end of the spectrum, and it's eliminating income testing after fierce criticism from parents.
Our plan was the right one. It still is the right one. We're just enhancing it, and
The province also extended treatment for kids currently getting therapy for another 6 months, though teachers say they're not ready for a possible influx of kids if funding does not cover their treatment after that.
We need supports. We need them now.
9 bricks and mortar pot shops open today across the province, though not all of the license applicants are ready. And no need to take your car in for emissions testing. That's now scrapped.
I think the Drive Clean program had reached its end of life.
The Green Party leader also blasted the province for removing charging stations in GO Station parking lots.
So if this government was serious about helping drivers, they would be supporting the switch to EVs.
The government cited low demand. Incidentally, the Office of the Environmental Watchdog is closed. In her last report, Diane Sachs criticized the PC's eliminating energy conservation incentives.
It means cutting off our nose to spite our face.
Ontario's child advocate Erwin Elman has wrapped up his job. His office officially closes by May 1st, folding into the Ombudsman's portfolio. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
More changes are coming your way today, this time for transit riders. Most fares will have a 10-cent increase, but adult cash fares will stay the same at $3.25. When it comes to Presto, adult tokens will now be $3.10 instead of $3. Senior and student tickets will increase by 20 cents and will now be $2.25. A regular monthly pass will now be about $151. That's up about $5. Also $5. Senior and student monthly passes now costing $122. The TTC says the hike in fares could provide roughly $26 million in added revenue. While TTC fares are going up, some GO prices may soon be going down. Metrolinx is hoping to reduce fares on some GO trips in the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The changes would start on April 20th if they're approved. On trips 10 Ks or less, you could save about $1. For Presto users, a ride will cost less than $4, while single fare tickets will be a little more. For trips longer than 10 kilometers, fares could increase up to 4% depending on the length of the trip. The Metrolinx board will vote on the changes on April 10th. Whether you're filing a lawsuit or filing for a divorce, starting today, it will cost you more. Some fees will only increase by a few bucks, while others will go up hundreds of dollars. For example, applying for a hearing in front of a judge in a small claims and family court will now double to about $400. CBC spoke to a lawyer who says this spike in fees may deter people from trying to find a solution through the courts.
Some of the fee hits are upwards of 50%, some of them are even double, and it has a huge impact on affecting whether a person will take a case to court, particularly if they don't have a lawyer. If you have a lawyer, these fees will be a drop in the bucket. But if you're representing yourself and you're trying to save money, and you're also, of course, trying to pursue someone to collect money, presumably, this is another expense, another big expense on top of what you've already lost.
The province says before the new fee structure was in place, the Ministry of the Attorney General was only able to recoup less than a third of court costs from civil litigants. So, Colette, the sun was shining out there today, which was great. It was a little crisp, but the wind.
Yeah, we had that talk earlier, didn't we?
You did warn me.
It kind of, well, it's just like the weather kind of fooled you. If you were looking outside, it looks like a beautiful day. You pop out there and then it's like all of a sudden, sure, you get caught in that wind and it feels a little bit cooler. And we still are dealing with a wind chill now. So the temperatures come to 2 degrees, Oshawa 1, Hamilton 0. But with the winds blowing, it feels like -3, and at times it certainly felt cooler than that today. It feels like -5 in Hamilton and in St. Catharines. So that was Mother Nature's little kind of April Fool's joke. Not what happened on the weekend, but just making it seem like it might be a nicer day than it was. But don't worry too much about it because we do have some nicer days ahead of us. We are going to see the temperatures kind of coming up, especially by the time we get towards next weekend, but even before that. A system that's just back to the north and west of us, as that is moving in, the winds are going to kick up even further and we'll see some clouds moving in as well. So as we go into Tuesday, a little more cloud cover, probably some nice sunny breaks at times, and in a few areas you'll get a little more sunshine, so somewhat variable through the day, but there's quite a bit of cloud cover to come through. The moisture primarily stays towards the north, but those winds will gust 40, maybe at times even 50 kilometers an hour. And if you watch this Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, as it moves through, although most of it pulls to the north, we could see just the odd stray, sprinkle, or wet flurry come even through the GTA. Then we head through Wednesday, and you know what's going to be happening is the cold front on the backside of this will have an impact on our temperatures as we're going to see the winds shifting around towards the north. Overnight tonight, the lows 0 to -2 with those clouds thickening up a little bit. We see that into tomorrow having an impact on some of our temperatures, but in general, looking for a high of about 8 degrees. So it is going to feel better than today, but because the winds will be stronger, there'll still be that little bit of a wind chill factor Going into Wednesday, still breezy, but up to 9 degrees. And then behind that cold front, that's why Thursday the temperature comes down a little bit. So we're still into a bit of a roller coaster pattern, but not quite as significant in terms of the stretches that we're seeing. Saturday, though, at this point, it's looking like we're going to be headed into the double digits. And, you know, even Sunday looking milder still, Dwight. So we do have that to look forward to.
Yes, love it. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
After the break, my chat with the CCO of Canadian cannabis company Aurora as retail shops finally open in Ontario. Plus, we take you to California, where so many farmers have pivoted to weed. There are fears of a cannabis crash. We'll have those stories for you next.
I never thought I'd see the day of actually walking into the store. I mean, the fact that there's cops driving by and I'm still able to walk in and get cannabis legally, I mean, what a time to be alive.
A customer in a long line waiting to get into Toronto's only legal cannabis store today. It's the first to open in our city, but more will be opening soon as legalization rolls out in the province. Cannabis retail shops in the province of Ontario are already generating buzz today, but growers are already looking to the future. I spoke with Darren Karuziak from Aurora Cannabis about the retail landscape and the cannabis products on the horizon.
It's a celebratory moment for this province to find the consumers, to finally get a chance to interact with the category, to get familiar, to learn about cannabis in a brick and mortar sort of way.
What is the biggest change that you've seen over the last 5.5 months since legalization?
Well, I suppose just how educated the consumers are becoming. The fact that we've, moving away from the black market, greater access to education out there, greater discussions about it, be it in media or whatnot, that consumers are becoming a lot more educated about the category and what it means to them and how it can fit into their lives. And I was just out in Alberta last week and watching that sort of environment. There's certainly a lot of want for that face-to-face interaction, for people to come in, to see what's new in there, to learn more about the category and the products that are available to them.
What do you think is going to take to get more people to go through the legal avenues? Because when you look at the numbers, that the black market is still there. Instead of going to the guy, your old guy in the corner, how do you get people to say, hey, it's legal now, you can go online, you can go to a store? How do you get that switch in the mind frame? Because people are still buying from the black market largely over the legal market at this point?
Sure. Well, I mean, we've all seen what's been reported out there in terms of that split. And as more product enters the marketplace too, as companies like Aurora continue to ramp up production, as different forms and varieties of the product hit the market later on this year as well, then you're going to see a much higher migration from the black market.
Let's look at some of the other products you were talking about, legal edibles, drinkables. People are talking about that coming on the horizon. What is then your company's vision for the future of cannabis consumption?
What we've done is really try to understand what the consumer wants, and we're continuing to focus on that specifically. If you take a look at mature markets like Colorado and California and the like, you can see a real growth in non-combustible forms that are out there, be it vapes, be it edibles, be it pill format, gel caps, oral strips and the like. So there's going to be, only so much as sort of what science will allow will be the limit in terms of what the opportunities are out there to provide a way to deliver a great cannabis experience in a way that, whatever way the particular consumer wants it.
How exciting is it to be on the ground level as we build up this industry in this country?
Canada's really seen as that hotbed of innovation right now, and really where the large cannabis companies that are driving innovation are rooted. And it's a great opportunity for us to show the world what's actually capable with this particular product.
Day one in Ontario for brick and mortar store. Anything you want to add to this debate as we move forward? Anything you think the viewers need to know?
Well, I think it's important for them to go, to experience the store, right? To understand that the stigma's gone. To learn about the product, the category that's out there, learn about the brands, including the Aurora brands, but enjoy the experience of learning about this.
Appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Good luck. Legalization has made growing cannabis an attractive alternative for Canadian farmers, but a new report in the U.S. raises the specter of oversupply. Since California legalized pot last year, a local grape farmer says it's been hard to ignore the temptation to switch crops. The state is now growing so much cannabis that the market could crash. Kim Brunhuber has the details.
Tom Rodriguez owns Maple Creek Winery. He also grows small amounts of cannabis. Because it's still illegal at the federal level, he's not keen to show it on TV. But he says he's far from the only one around here growing both.
Although they're just not all out. A lot of them are still in the closet, so to speak.
When California legalized cannabis in 2018, grape prices were at the lowest level in years. And pot prices were so high, Rodriguez says, many grape growers started doing the math.
You're growing cannabis at $250 a pound that's ready in 8 months? Or Pinot Noir that's ready in a year and a half at $2 a pound. You're a farmer, what are you going to do? Seems like a no-brainer.
1 hectare of grapes here in Sonoma County can be worth up to $460,000 US, but the same area of cannabis can be worth as much as $2.75 million. The problem is California's cannabis growers are now producing too much pot, at least 5 times the amount that's actually consumed. Some in the industry are predicting a so-called extinction event, which only the biggest companies will survive. Any small grape grower who invested heavily in cannabis, Rodriguez says, could be snuffed out.
There's always that risk in a new industry like this. Personally, I just want to wait and see. Well, this is our double gold winner.
So Rodriguez says for now he'll carry on selling wine and keep his weed for friends and family. Kim Brunhuber, CBC News, Mendocino County, California.
Dwight, I'm here at the Sheraton Centre in downtown Toronto, where tonight we're celebrating the best of Canada's songwriters in past and present. It's the 30th anniversary of SOCAN Awards, and I'll bring you all the action coming up after the break, including hopefully some of the big winners tonight.
A who's who of the Canadian music scene has turned out for the 30th SOCAN Awards tonight. The awards celebrate Canadian songwriters. Deanna Sumanek-Johnson is standing by, always red carpet ready. She's at the Sheridan Center right now. So what's the mood like? And it looks like you have guests there, Deanna.
I do have guests here, Dwight. The mood is celebratory. We're celebrating the best of Canada's songwriters. It's the 30th anniversary of SOCAN, an important organization which helps these guys get royalties so they can keep doing what they're doing.
Yes.
Here with me, I have the Beaches. They're named after the Toronto neighborhood. Am I correct here?
That is correct.
And they're an amazing rock band. They're receiving the honor for Best Rock Songwriters tonight. How are we feeling about that, ladies?
Honestly,
like let the cat out of the bag here.
I mean, honestly, it's so incredible, and we're so honored to be nominated for this award, especially like because rock is so important to us. To be recognized as a rock band is just like the coolest thing. We're honored.
Who are you guys excited to see here tonight? I mean, the Buffy St. Marie is here. Some of the most legendary of Canada's songwriters are here.
Chad Kroger, of course. I know, right? We already met him. He's so nice. Love it.
I'm excited to see my friends that are nominated tonight. Yeah, like Tyler Shaw.
Tell me, I love your guys' approach to lyrics. Always kind of catchy, a little bit provocative. What inspires you, and what have you learned about the craft of songwriting since you started working?
You know, since I've been really getting into songwriting, I've started to realize the more personal you get, the more relatable you are. So even if there's a story that just relates to you, whatever, you have a like drunk, embarrassing evening, it turns out that probably a lot of people have also experienced the things that you have as a young woman, and exposing that and being honest about what it means to be a young woman is really important, and it's sort of what's helped us sort of define our place in rock and roll in Canada.
Thank you guys so much, and you've definitely found that place. You're being honored tonight. I think that they're beckoning to you right now. Congrats on everything, and look forward to what's next. Dwight, I'm gonna continue to stay here, and we're still waiting for Jessie Reyes. She has not walked the red carpet yet. She's she's right behind me. Thank you, fellow red carpet reporter. Everybody's very friendly around here, so I'm going to try to grab everyone before they swoop them right in there. Dwight.
We'll let you get back to work. I finally got to see the Beaches. I've heard their music now. I know what they look like. Thank you, Deanna.
I know, they're so great, right?
They are great.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
Canada's television, movie, and digital media industry capped off a week of celebrations last night with the gala presentation for the Canadian Screen Awards. Now, when it comes to the most hardware won, and with an E and the crime drama series Cardinal tied for top spot with 7 trophies each. But perhaps the biggest winners are Canadian audiences who are seeing a sea change when it comes to the stories we tell and the people who tell them. Yelena Adzik shares more on the themes that played out at the ceremony.
Billy, I'm crying already. Diversity in storytelling. That's the central theme that emerged from the Canadian Screen Awards, as the steady stream of winners included women and unique stories that don't often make it to the mainstream screens. Schitt's Creek, for example, it started out as a kooky show about the culture clash between the rich and the poor, but the North American hit has evolved into a showpiece of stereotype busting. It won for Best Comedy, and when its star Catherine O'Hara claimed the Best Actress award, she shared her thoughts on the show's success.
I am so proud to be involved in a show that laughs at the ridiculousness of all that we are, without malice or homophobia or racism or ageism.
Then there's rising Canadian star Stephan James, known for the Jesse Owens biopic Race, his role in the Oscar contender If Beale Street Could Talk, as well as earning a Golden Globe nomination for Homecoming, where he stars opposite Julia Roberts. Well, now he's the inaugural winner of the CSA's new Radius Award, which recognizes a Canadian making an impact globally. After paying respect to his hometown of Scarborough, Ontario, as well as his mom and brothers, Stephan James turned his attention to young people in his community who are often marginalized.
I want to tell you that your craziest dreams, your wildest imaginations are all possible, no matter where you are, no matter where you come from. Scarborough to the world.
Now, there's no question that much of the spotlight this year fell on women storytellers, even behind the scenes. Here's a tweet from backstage showing a photo of the all-female writing team for the CSA Gala show. And it's notable that 60% of the night's nominated films were directed by women. On top of that, special career honors were given to comedian Mary Walsh, as well as director Deepa Mehta, who touched upon the importance of diversity in her acceptance speech.
Many of us are immigrants in this country, and from the outset are searching for a sense of home. We in this room must ensure we continue to create a country that is not divisive and where dialogue continues to be possible.
All in all, relative to Hollywood and relative to past years here at home, the Canadian Screen Awards took a big step forward when it comes to the direction of diversity in the stories we tell. Yelena Adzik, CBC News, Toronto.
Okay, so first of all, mic technique, Elijah. You got to hold the mic like this, not like this. We're not rapping, Elijah. I'm not Travis Scott, okay? So we're gonna say, they're the journalists of the future. More from our Canadian Screen Awards Family Fun Day coming up next. Let's look over here. Earlier, we showed you some celebrities at the Canadian Screen Awards. This weekend, I met some fresh young talent you may be seeing on your screen soon. This weekend at the CSA Family Fun Day, I got to have some fun with a few budding journalists. Take a look.
What does it take to be a journalist?
What does it take to be a journalist? You got to be really inquisitive, right? You got to want to know what's going on everywhere all the time. Are you like that?
Yeah. What's your favorite place to go for vacation?
My favorite place to go for vacation, I would have to say Montego Bay, Jamaica. On the beach with a good book and the kids all the way on the other side.
CBC Toronto News.
You want to do it again?
No.
That was perfect?
Yeah.
High fives. Good job, young lady.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, mic technique, Elijah. You got to hold the mic like this. Not like this. We're not rapping, Elijah. I'm not Travis Scott, okay? Deep voice. Deep voice.
This is a liar. Deep voice.
Elijah, I'm not sure we got that one right, buddy.
I got you a question.
Oh, you got a question? Okay. Nobody wants to do the sign-off. They want to do the tough question.
When will there be a giant asteroid coming to Earth and crashing us?
I am really hoping never. So we're going to say, this is Cassandra for CBC Toronto News. Are you ready?
This is Cassandra for CBC Toronto News.
That was pretty good, Cassandra. Miss Cassandra even got like applause from the audience. She was so good.
Perfect. And Elijah, he's definitely inquisitive.
It was a lot of fun down there this weekend with those young people. And the weather outside was frightful, so I'm glad we were inside doing this.
It was a good spot to be, that's for sure, yeah. Let's hope we've got that behind us, but there's still, you know, we need to get into mid-April before we can really count on things in terms of snow not coming back at us, right?
Mid-April?
Yeah, we don't have to worry about it tonight, though, okay? Hey, well, there's snow to the north of us, but -1 for us here. We'll just see clouds on the increase. The winds will get a little bit breezier tomorrow from the south to southwest, so gusting over 40 kilometers an hour. And pushing our temperature up to about 8 degrees. And then it's tomorrow night into Wednesday. There'll be some of that mixed precip to the north of us. We could get a stray flurry. Nothing to worry about.
Everybody's working towards that great weekend anyway. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow.